So now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today. Reverend Joe Sloan was ordained as a Unity minister in 1995. He served as assistant minister and then senior minister at Christ Church Unity in Kansas City North. In 2000, Joe and his wife Lynn returned to California to pioneer Unity in the Gold Country and Grass Valley and served that ministry for 12 years. Joe's been our regional representative and now regional consultant for the West Central region for over 20 years. He's a member of Unity Worldwide Ministries Standard Committee, Ethics Review Team, and the Ministers Evaluation Team. Joe's passion is helping ministers and boards succeed in providing a loving, guiding environment for their congregations. So please welcome Joe Sloan.
That step gets a little bit higher every year. I don't know. Well, hello. And happy St. Patrick's Day. It's my day. 2 days after St. Patrick's Day is my 37th AA birthday. Which also happens to fall on the feast of St. Joseph. God was always looking out for me. I'm going to start with a reading from Scripture, a little bit unusual, but this is from Isaiah, the 2nd chapter. He shall judge between the nations and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. I'll work that in. But 'tis a fine day to be Irish, isn't it? Everyone likes to be Irish, at least for one day. It wasn't always so. The Irish had trouble migrating into this country many years ago. We're not welcomed by many, if not most. And even out here in the West, when people came to find a new life, Irish still were. You may have seen pictures of the signs of a store saying, help wanted, Irish need not apply. But it's okay now to be Irish. It's even fun. So, if only for a day. I've been to Ireland 3 times. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. You've heard of it, referred to as 40 shades of green. And as you're flying over Ireland, when you look down, there are, 40 shades at least of green. There's that wonderful song, a little bit of heaven fell from out the sky one day and landed in the ocean not so very far away. It's a bit of heaven, but it has also seen it's more than a bit of hell. Many beautiful cities. Galway is probably Lynn and I's favorite place, and the cliffs of Moher, where the cliffs drop 1,000 feet down into the Atlantic Ocean. Spectacular. And the rough flowered beauty of the Burren, what they call the Burren, the more of the flat lands. Castles everywhere. I remember a guide saying that there were 40,000 castles I thought he must have made a mistake, or I didn't hear him right. 4,000 would seem like a lot. No, there were 40,000 castles. A lot of them in disrepair, but still looking beautiful and speaking of the future. Why were there so many castles? Of course, Ireland was invaded so many times and still was able to maintain that culture. In fact, a lot of the culture of civilization was gathered and kept in Ireland because the rest of Europe was overthrown, really, at one time. They're friendly, funny people in Ireland, they really are. I remember we were on a bus and we had some young people, and so they asked the driver, he says, why do you drive on the left side of the road? He says, to avoid the people coming the other way. And every morning somebody would ask, is it going to rain today, Michael? And he says, what's it matter? He says, you get wet, you get dry. I think of that often lately. We've had a lot of opportunities to get wet and get dry. The weather in Ireland, I've been 3 trips there and never been rained on. Jerry Farrell, who replaced me up in Grass Valley, is from County Cork and says he can't hardly believe that because it rains more than 200 days out of the year. It's not really rain, they say. They say it's just the mist coming off the mountain, bringing with the smell of heather and the sea. No rain. Dublin, a wonderful place. So much going on all the time. I could do a lot of living in Dublin. When we were there last, it was the 100th anniversary of the famous Abbey Theatre. And they were doing one of the original plays, and it was with a west of Ireland dialect. There's more as you go to the west of Ireland, still a lot of Irish-speaking people. This was all English, but we could barely understand it. In fact, our guide came to pick us up, and she said she couldn't understand a lot of it. She was from Dublin. It's all English. Trinity College, it was just an amazing place. It holds the Book of Kells, the famous Book of Kells, and an amazing library. I mean, just amazing. It's hundreds of yards and high, tall ceilings and books. If you're a book lover, just to stand in the midst of it is just powerful, powerful. All those very books, all that knowledge gathered. I did ask myself from time to time if we didn't spend too much with our own people, not enough time with engaging the Irish people themselves, because they're wonderful people. But we were up in what the Irish call Derry, what the English call Londonderry, and just standing outside one of the shops and speaking to one of the shop owners, and he talking about where we've been. He says, "Where are you going tomorrow?" And I said, "We're going up to Belfast, the capital of Northern Ireland." And he says, "Well, he says, the Protestants are having their big parade tomorrow." He says, "You plan on wearing that hat?" And I had this typical Irish hat on. And I said, "Yeah, I thought I would." He says, "Well, keep your head down. Keep your head down." But they canceled the parade. It's always been a sore subject, and just a little call at peace. They do work at it. The surprising beauty of the North. Many of the big farms are in the North. In the North is 6 counties that are controlled by England. 26 counties of what was known as the Republic in the South. We didn't see much in the way of, this was several years ago, but there wasn't any, what they call the troubles up in Ireland. Wasn't much going on. Did see a tank at one time driving from one place to another. And up in Derry, there's some of the neighborhoods, because of the dissension, of divided by this corrugated walls. And soldiers in high towers, but it's all a friendly thing. As we go on by, our guide waves to them, they wave back, Evidence of at least a desire to be friendly. And Blarney Castle, you have to go to Blarney Castle. I've been there 3 times. I've kissed the Blarney Stone 3 times. I hope it shows. But it's an interesting, if you've never been there, the stone is actually on a wall, but and there's a big hole in front of it that drops down 3 stories, and you actually lay on your back and you turn your head over. I don't know if I could do it now anymore, but you kiss the stone upside down, and there's a man that holds you from dropping 3 stories down. there's a winding stair that gets up to it, very tight. And as we were slowly going up the winding stair, I was passed by an Irishman in a hurry, and he strong smell of whiskey, this heavy smell. So we get up the top and I looked over and noticed he's the guy that's holding you up. And we met this beautiful Colleen, and she really was a young girl. She had two of her cousins with her, and she lived near to the town of Blarney, but she had never been to the castle. And as we slowly got around so you could see what was going on, she says in a very loud voice, she says, "Why?" She says, "It's not a stone at all, it's a wall." And everybody laughed, of course. Thinking of the Blarney Stone, I have quite a repertoire of Irish stories, and so I'll share one with you as regards to it. And this is an American group of people doing a tour, and there's one American lady, she's complaining about everything. She doesn't like the room, she doesn't like the food, doesn't like anything about it. And as they're going towards Blarney, they get a flat tire. So they all have to get off the bus, and she's complaining about that. And they get back on again, she's still complaining. And the driver finally stands up, he says, "Well, I'm sorry to tell you." He says, "But we're going to be too late to go up into the castle. But it's said that if you kiss someone who's kissed the Blarney Stone, it's just as good." This lady says, "Well, I suppose now you're going to tell us you kissed the Blarney Stone." He said, "No, but I sat on it once." Ireland has seen its struggles from the very beginning. That's the reason for all those castles. And there are those who would say that it may have been even better if they hadn't Christianized all of Ireland, just left it to the Druids. The work of St. Patrick, of course. It's an unfortunate truth that religion tends to separate people, to divide them. And Ireland is such a case. The Troubles up in Northern Ireland. Catholics versus those, what they say, those of the other faith, the prods. It's diminished considerably that the underlying feeling is still there, and it's too bad. Like we have in this country as well, don't we? When the English ruled all of Ireland, the Irish were not allowed to practice their religion. They were not allowed to be educated. In fact, they had these, what they called hedge teachers. And if you go to Ireland, you see them, so many of the roads have these big hedges on either side. I guess it's to keep the fog from coming in. So if you go to Ireland, be sure to be on a bus because you have to be up high enough to see over the hedges. But these hedge teachers were trained for a couple years on all the history of Ireland and the history of civilization. And they would go about from place to place. The word would be passed as can be done at a place like that. And they meet behind the hedges to practice their religion, to the education. And really, in the process, preserve civilization for Europe. But the migration was a difficult thing. The potato famine, you're familiar with, more than 4,000 Irish affected, more than 2 million migrated to the United States. Another 2 million people died of starvation. And they're as friendly as they can be, but they've never forgiven the English for that, never. There are places in Ireland that are never repopulated after the famine. But I'll share with you a happier story, and it had regard to the migration. This Kathleen O'Reilly was her English landowner, was one of the nicer ones, and had provided her for steerage to America. That's what they refer in America. And he had also given her a letter of good reputation that she could use for getting a job when she got to America. Well, she's getting off the boat and she realized she doesn't have it, she can't find it anywhere. So she's all in tears, and one of her village people who had already migrated saw her there, and he said to her, he says, well, don't worry, Kathleen, I'll write you a letter of good reputation. And so he did. And it read like this. He says, Kathleen O'Reilly had a good reputation in Ireland, but she lost it on board the ship coming over. But we're part of all that migration. You know, a lot of us can trace back to, I think mainly, Sloan doesn't sound like an Irish name, but when we were up in Northern Ireland, there was I asked a hostess at one of the restaurants, were any Sloans around? I personally knew Ron Delaney. I don't know if you remember him, but he was a Irish 1500 Olympic champion. And he told me that he knew some Sloans. But anyhow, are there any Sloans around? She said, lots of them. And went back and checked the phone book, and there was over 300 Sloans listed in the phone book in Armagh. But a lot of us can trace ourselves back there. We have gathered the people of the world here in the United States, and it's a great responsibility that we have. It rests on each of us to love all of our brothers and sisters. We say it a lot, but we need to keep saying it a lot. And we need to keep living it a lot. People come from different countries, but all from the one source. There's only one God. Statement that we have made, and I think truthfully in unity for 120 years, we have left no one out. And there's a lot of good people working to resolve the differences we have between us. So we need to let nothing divide us. For it's a lie to say that we are separate. We have our own personalities, but we all come from the same source. We're not separate. Jesus came to break down those barriers, and it's still going on. It needs to be happening today and today and today. There's always been struggles till we come to see the truth that the only difference between us is man-made, and I lay it heavily on men, frankly, man-made and self-accepted. But so we all had to accept that. But we have a grand opportunity because this is something we can do. We spend so much time worrying about what's happening in other parts of the world, and surely that needs our prayers and some of our money. But mainly we have to be concerned with what's happened in our own communities right here. We need to start to what is called the prejudicial detoxification process. We need to start it here. It's already started. We've come here this morning to be here together, to acknowledge that we are one. And we do leave no one out for any reason. No judgment involved. We may be sitting next to someone, they may be of the same color or the same race, but they are different in some ways. They come from different backgrounds, and that's the beauty of where we are. That's why we come together. The monks go off, but to be together. We need to recognize always that the differences between us are really nothing. Race, party, sexual preference, religious backgrounds, the only truth between us is love. I've often said that if someone were to walk in that door right now, knowing someone I had never seen before, and I yelled, "I love you," they'd probably take off and run. But it's the absolute truth. Well, maybe you get to know him, maybe you might not love him quite as much. But we do that to ourselves. We do it to ourselves. You may remember that wonderful movie, The Maids. Did you all see that movie? It takes place in the South, and the mistreatment of the owners, the white people, by their maids, by all black people for that matter. And towards the end, one of the maids is fired because she has participating in some writing about what actually happens in the South. But before she leaves, she gets up nose to nose with the mistress of the house and says, "Aren't you sick of it all? Aren't you just sick of it all?" And I think we need to, from time to time, ask ourselves that question. Aren't we sick of all this prejudice? Aren't we just sick of it? Well, it starts here, and then we take that out into our own world. We spend, too much time worrying about the rest of the world. We need to focus more on what we're doing in our little world, our community. Family, community, state, county, our world, or our world. Even the universe. If you are holding yourself back from God, that's another separation. And how does it feel when that happens? Not good. What are we going to do about it? How we feel to be completely in peace, how would that feel within ourselves? Actually, it said there is no such thing as peace. That peace is simply the absence of troubles and worries. And troubles or worries are attempts to control our future, which you can never do, of course. We can only do what we need to do today. The American paleontologist by the name of Edward Cope, that's where the word comes from, lived in the 1840s up to the 1890s, I guess. But he was collecting mammal fossils. He was out in the West. He was a Quaker and a pacifist, and despite being in the Wild West at the time, he refused to carry a gun. And he was once surrounded by a group of hostile warriors. And he reached in and took his false teeth and pulled them out and put them in, and kept pulling them out and putting them in. They all laughed, and they left him alone. Left him alone. That's a true story. So could you cope with any of your would-be attackers? We are, from time to time, we feel like we are attacked. How would you handle it? Could you do it with love, or you're human? I rely on humor quite a bit to get me through a lot of things. And you need to see the humor in yourself. If you don't see the humor in yourself, you're missing a lot of really good stuff. So we might remember Edward Coop the next time a coping situation comes. Even if you don't have false teeth, you always have your humor. You have already the right stuff to find peace, to make peace in your world. The ability to cope came with her as a package. And then we have a choice as to carry war about us, carry dissension about us, carry prejudice about us, or we could let it go. Beautiful Ireland, still struggling, like many places in the world. We have struggled in this country, in our own communities. But peace means no much absence from struggle, but the presence of love. Not absence, but the presence of love. Father Edward Hayes, I've used a lot of his material over the years. He was a good Irishman, a priest from up in St. Joseph, Missouri. I got to have lunch with him before I left there. But he has a prayer, one of the prayers for a planetary pilgrim, and it's prayers for absolutely everything. I mean everything. But this is one of his prayers. He says, may the great age, speaking to God, may the great age you promise us, O God, come quickly to our war-weary world. O patient God of peace and harmony, your servant Isaiah foretold of the conversion of weapons into useful tools, quoting your very words, nation will not lift sword against nation, nor ever again be trained for war. The Jewish word for peace is shalom. The Sanskrit word is shanti. And the Irish word for peace is shanakun. In a world full of love, you don't really need a word. You, all of you, are the word. You are the word. So a final blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your faces, and may the rain fall softly upon your life. And may you always feel rest and safe in the palm of God's hand. God bless all here and all those who may pray.
Is that correct? I am next?
You're next.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. When you think of Ireland, when I think of Ireland, I don't think of the castles so much as the beauty of the nature, the flowers and the green. And so when I was told that I was going to have the opportunity to do the meditation today, I chose the 23rd Psalm. I have found that in the Bible, oftentimes in the Old Testament, it seems as though there's a lot of begging of God. But David really came through as a unity student for us, because the 23rd Psalm is actually an affirmation. And you know how we love affirmations in unity. So if you'll just enjoy being relaxed in your chair for another few moments. Take a nice deep breath. Breathing in the breath of God, and breathing out the breath of God. For truly we are one. The only separation is that we make in our own minds. So again we say, I am one with you, God. I am one with you, God. The 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right places for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For thou art with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This affirmation of love was given so many years ago, but it is ours It's ours to live each day. We can see those beautiful green pastures right here in our own beloved Auburn. We see the flowers blooming. We feel this burst of new life. New life within us. New life on our earth. New birth of love. If we listen carefully, we can hear it in everyone we encounter. Listen for the love. Listen for the rebirth of our oneness with each other. For just a few moments, we will rest together in the silence. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Let's say that together. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As we remind ourselves of these truths, our heart opens even more. For it is our open hearts that bring us peace and love and security and oneness with all that we encounter. Thank you, God, for these truths. And together we say amen and amen.